Alright, hey everybody, this is Leroy with Leroy Diesel. Wanted to show you some important updates to the newest version of the oil cooler hose kits. Right here you see laid out basically everything that you might possibly get, no matter which kit you purchase. But I'll try to dissect this. It should be a fairly comprehensive video. So let's just get right into it. The very first thing, the most important thing, is I'm changing the hoses to this hose. It's a cloth braided, it's an R5 rated hose, and that is a very high quality hose. It's rated to pump all kinds of automotive application fluids. It'll do LPG, which is typically, I'm not exactly sure, but I think it's around 450 psi. It's capable of pumping engine oil, obviously, transmission fluid, almost any kind of automotive fluid that you would want. So important update is I'm changing the hose. The reason being is in the previous kit I was supplying this. Hopefully, let me get the viewfinder in there a little better. Yeah. So I was supplying this kit, which I'll take off the table here in a second, not to confuse anybody. This is a logistics nightmare, and behind the scenes it is a huge amount of time to keep all this in stock and to build this stuff. Plus, on top of that, the main reason I'm going to these hoses right now is that kind of the straw that broke the camel's back is these parts are becoming hard to find, and I've been having to delay some customers and get them on back orders and things, waiting for these to come in. So just a real quick, so you kind of get a feel for what I was having to do, is this is a straight tubing. It was coming to me in 20-foot lengths. I would have to cut those to size. Then I would have to bend them in my tubing bender, and then I would have to flare them. So on each side I would have 2 flares, and that's a huge amount of work when you consider the amount of these kits that I'm selling, which is, it's a great problem to have, but I don't have the time. Plus, it's very difficult to source these parts right now. So along with building these and inventorying them and all that, the rest of the parts, where you would have gotten 2 unions, which is right here, 1 on each tube nut sleeves, and then the tube nuts themselves, plus the end that would go into the cooler. So all of that was being supplied. So let me take that off the table. That's no longer available unless you want it by very special request. You can request that from me, and I'll see what I have in stock at the time. So getting back into the main kit here. So without these this hose is now going to reach all the way up to these 45-degree fittings. So that's going to be mounted up in your core support. Obviously, I'm talking about the coolers. I have a aftermarket like is in my kits, and then the factory like you might have on your truck now, but it's your option which one you want to go with. So here are the block fittings. So you just need to choose the appropriate kit so that you get the correct block fittings. If you're not sure which size block you have, you can purchase those. They're only $14, and the price, by the time this video comes out, you know, it may go up, but the current price will be on the website. So recommend you get the additional fittings just so you make sure you have what you need. The most important information that you need to know is how to identify what cooler you have. Because once you know what cooler you have, we can just sell you both block fittings. That's a no-brainer. But you need to know what cooler you have, because these fittings are very expensive. These are machined. We're the only ones doing this. waiting for somebody to copy me like everything else I do. Anyway, that's a whole nother subject. So to identify the cooler, let me move this hose a little bit. I've been over this before, so a lot of people already know all this stuff. On the hex of the cooler itself, not the tube nut that goes into the cooler, the hex on the cooler. If it's a 92 through early 97, it'll be 1 inch. So it's a, I don't know if that'll come through on the viewfinder, but it's a 1 inch wrench, which should also be the same as a 25 millimeter. That will identify this as a 92 to early 97, assuming it's a factory oil cooler, because some confusion comes in, and the aftermarket cooler here, which is next to it, also fits a 1 inch wrench, but it is a 1/2 inch pipe thread. Now the way you can tell the difference between them, let me get that wrench off of there, the factory cooler is going to have some like dash marks in it, where the aftermarket is smooth. And also, if you're fairly savvy with pipe or with fittings, you can identify a pipe thread fitting versus the smaller metric fitting, which requires the O-ring, which is similar to this guy. So that would thread up in there. Now, to identify if you have a HO oil cooler, if your 1 inch wrench won't fit and it requires 1 1/4 inches, then you obviously have the larger HO fitting, which is what this guy is. Well, this is, I cut this off of a cooler just so it'd be easier to show in a video. But here's my 1 inch wrench. It won't fit, so obviously that must be an HO. The fittings you get will screw into there, and it will look just like that coming out of the cooler, just a different size. So that's how you'll identify what coolers you have. And so the most important part of this video was showing you that we are changing the hose that you will be getting in these kits immediately. And I sure feel like I'm missing something, but to give you kind of a rundown on how the installation goes, is what I like to do is I like to get the block fittings in the block first, and it's tight, no doubt about it. It's not a real fun job. If you have a 4x4, you probably want to remove your filter adapter, and I would also suggest getting on my website and buying the 4x4 O-ring kit. Once you do get the old fittings out, you'll put these in, and it may take a combination of tools to get this in. Sometimes I use a wrench when the fitting's available to get a wrench on it. It just depends on the angle it's at. Sometimes I'll take a large dowel or even a real large Phillips head screwdriver and put it in this side, and then you can kind of turn it a little more, and you'll just have to keep working at it until you can get a wrench on it again and tighten this sucker up, because it's tight, no doubt. On a 4x4, you're going to angle the fitting. Typically it's going to be angled slightly at a slight upward angle so that the hoses will clear the 4x4 adapter, but then the hose is allowed to droop just because of gravity back down. You're going to route it basically along the oil pan rail, in that direction, and probably go under a motor mount or however you want to route it. Just make sure it's not going to vibrate against a sharp edge, something like that, and then make your connections up front. So I'll get these out of the way for now. That was the block fitting. Then you'll have your cooler mounted up in the grill. You'll put the appropriate fittings in, whether it's the aftermarket cooler fittings or the stock, depending on which year you chose. Then you'll attach the 45-degree fittings. They will go kind of towards the center of the cooler and slightly forward so that the hoses will clear the core support, and then they'll be allowed to go back to the block. So I think I've covered everything. I always feel like I'm forgetting something, but if you have any questions at all, go here, LeroyDiesel.com, and I'm real easy to get a hold of. If you have any questions, give me a call, shoot me an email. Appreciate it if you would like and subscribe, and even comment down in the comments below. If you have my kit, maybe provide some feedback, you know, so that other guys looking at this video will know the quality and customer service that you get. Any questions, like I say, let me know. Have a good day.